Hi, welcome to Base Editing with Daisy. Today we're going to be looking at terraforming, that is creating land masses out of the items that we have available in the editor. Now for creating something like hills, grass hills, we have 3 grass hills, grass 1, 2, and 3, over in surfaces. And I've already got one started here, and as you can see the grass hill here is quite a bit lower than what I've got showing. So all I did to get it to go higher was I angled it. And you angle it however you want. Get the edge showing that you want. Bury that edge or lift it up and bury it in the existing edges. This can be very detail-oriented, very painstaking work. It can take a lot of time doing this because once you've got it placed, you've got to go around and see, did I get it all placed? And of course, if you're making a hill, you're going to want to go around to both sides of the hill. And this time I'm going to place grass plate 2, or grass hill 2. And you see I'm just melding the edges here. See the edge, I don't know if you can see that. There's an edge there. I'm just making sure that this hill covers up the edges that are showing. And so then once I'm done with that, well, I've got another side of the hill done. And maybe I want to do the top, so I might want to just raise this up and put it in there again until the edges are covered. You want to make sure those edges don't stick out because they are going to catch and trip up your characters as they're trying to maneuver around. If they're lifted up too high and leave gaps, then your characters could fall through and get stuck on the other side. And it doesn't look good if you're trying to make something that looks more realistic. So it's just a process of angling it and placing it and then going in and looking and making sure that those edges are where they're supposed to be and not sticking out. And then if you do find some that are sticking out, of course try to hide them. You can sometimes camouflage them with plants, but before you lay the plants down, it's a good idea to just make sure you're terraformed smoothly. Now sometimes if you have a few rough edges, you can use one of the new pieces, and this would be found in Nature, which is another one of the tabs. When you go past the plants and the pumpkins, the dead trees and such, you'll get to the new items. Past a few rocks, or around a few rocks, there is grass transition 1 and 2. And these are new pieces, and they have kind of feathered edges. So these are meant, and one is quite a bit larger than the other, but these are meant to just kind of go over some of those harder to blend areas and just hopefully cover them up. But then you got to be careful of these feathered edges also to make sure they don't stick out and create some problems, because they can be every bit as annoying and hard to hide as the hard edges. So, but it's another piece to try, and you don't have to do the entire hill then. You can just do part of the hill because it's almost a flat, it's a slightly curved piece. It's not a whole rounded piece meant to be an entire hill. Then we also have the grass valley. Now let me just show you how the grass valley comes out. It comes out already sunk down. So if you just level on the floor, this is going to be what it looks like. Not super impressive. So when you raise that up then, you can get the whole valley effect. You have to go pretty high to get it all off the floor. But then, you know, the rest of your base is down here. If you were laying things on the floor, and you're going to have to place several of these grass valleys in a row and link them up to get them to look like one continuous surface. The thing about these valleys is that even when they're at the same height, sometimes they don't line up quite right. And these are allegedly at the same height. Let me see if I can get them next to each other and show you. Down here, well, they're almost the same height. Bring that up a little bit. But even when they've been pretty much set right next to each other and made the same height, sometimes there's a little bit of a blending problem along here where one you might see underneath. And you might see underneath in some areas, and then you go to the other side, and well, now you see underneath in other areas. Right now it's blending. This side is blending pretty well. But sometimes you get edges where they gap, because this is not a completely even piece on all sides. So if you've got a piece that gaps, that's where you could use some of the transition pieces and just kind of go over the surface and cover up those edges. And or you can use hills, whatever you want to do to make those pieces so that they blend together and you don't have the gaps going through and looking down below. So that's another piece that you can use for terraforming, and it's quite a large piece, and a lot of it's already done for you, so that does work out actually pretty well. So then if you want to make, say, want to use rocks, this is another thing. I've got a few rock samples out here. You want to make sure you use rocks that are in the same color family. Like Croatoa rocks look different than the Eden rocks, and which look different than the cliff rocks, which look different than the isle or island rocks. So if you use the same type of rock, then they blend quite well. But if you use two different types of rocks, well, they don't really blend very well, and unless that's the look you're going for, I would suggest using the same color rocks. Now, make sure the rocks are complete. Most rocks have a top and a bottom and sides and have something on all sides, but these isle rocks, they simply don't have anything on the bottom. So if I turn that over, you can see there is just nothing on the bottom side of that, which is fine if you're laying them down into a surface, and just make sure that that bottom side is not exposed or the edge is not lifted up anywhere. Now if you want to make, say, a floating island, then you're going to want to go to the nature section again and look past the floating rocks and the Manti rocks and the Eden rocks until you get to island rock large. And these are the very largest of these pieces, and you'll want to have some sort of a floor to put them on so that you can get them all to be at the same height. So here's my floor, and what I would just do is take a piece and set it up out here, and then move it to where I want it, and angle it the way I want it. And you can see these are really big pieces, so it takes a while to get around them. But these pieces are all different sizes and shapes, and they all bend slightly differently. So, you know, if I were placing this piece, I might angle it that way, I might angle it this way, whatever it takes. But I just want to show you on the outside of this. When you make a circle, then you've got basically your floating island, because it comes down to a rough cone. But all of these rocks, see this one angles, it's pretty much straight up on the top, and then it goes down into a sharp angle on the bottom. But the place it angles there is, for instance, much different than this rock, which angles much on a much higher spot and has more of a curved edge to it. So when you're, you know, blending the rocks on the outside, that's first of all a bit of a pain, because when you want to blend those edges together, well, they don't meet at the same place, so they're a bit of a pain to try and get to go all in the same place. But you know, and they angle at different places, so sometimes it's easier. And then the tops are also different. You have some that are kind of pointy and long and narrow, and then you have some that are very much wider and almost flat on the top. And you have some pieces like this piece, Island Rock 3, is much shorter, than these other pieces. If you can see, it doesn't even go down quite as far or up quite as far. So it's definitely, look at the piece and see how you like them and see how you want them to go together. Like this piece is kind of blunt on both sides, and of course you're going to want them to the tops to kind of blend together, and you can put some more rocks in between them to bridge those gaps, but you're going to want that to be pretty smooth, because then to make the top of your island, to start it, you're going to need a floor surface. So I just use the surface attachment and place that where I want it, and then I can start building from there. Like a grass plate would go there, and that is level, it just doesn't look level. But that is, like I said, level, and I would just start from there and fill in, or I might put water in here. It is hollow, so you could build something inside of the island if you wanted to. You could go back to the nature section and use that valley if you wanted to have a large area that was filled all at once, and you didn't mind having the big dip in the middle. So there are lots of options when you're making the surface for your island. But just remember to fill in the edges around the sides of your grass plates, because there's nothing underneath, and you want to make sure that is all the edges are attached to something like a rock, so that you don't see underneath them, because there's nothing underneath them at all. So that's basically how you would make a floating island. That's the easiest way to make a floating island. You used to have to just blend the rocks together and make it out of the smaller rocks. So that's very nice that we were able to get those pieces. And of course, if you're down here, you can make smaller hills and mountains with your rocks. There are some good pointy ones under the landscape. Landscape is where you're going to find many of your two-sided rocks that are in the different colors, including some lava rocks, and then some fairly large cave pieces, which are in the gray tone family. So you have some pieces like this that are pointed on the bottom, so they look kind of like an ice cream cone, a big flat ice cream cone, or a Hershey's Kiss. And then you can turn them over, and the top part is then like a mountain peak. And so you can blend these guys together if you want to form, higher mountains and so forth. But the island rocks definitely are the biggest thing in the game, and they are quite nice to work with as far as when you need a large piece of real estate to make. Okay, that's basically terraforming. It takes some time, it takes some patience, but the results are usually quite nice. Thanks for listening. Bye.